in my own mind, I've seen these three phases. So first, when I came into the bank, as for those of you that have covered, it was a tumultuous period. And so I had the challenge of a leader trying to turn around an institution. And to the credit of the institution, the best way to get out of some of the internal strife was to focus people on the mission. That's what people came to the bank, and we were able to do that relatively quickly. We had some complicated issues to deal with in governance and anti-corruption and others, where Paul Volcker and others helped. Second, before too long, we had the food and fuel crisis start to hit us in late 2007. So I'm particularly pleased that sort of a combination of my international experience and kind of reading what was happening in the market, we moved quite quickly. And I think if you talk to people in the food security community, they felt that the bank was more agile than it might have been in the past. But in addition, we start to see this as an opportunity to invest in agriculture going into the future. And then, as I mentioned, in the financial crisis, doing about $250 billion of support is not only important financially, but it was important to how we designed a lot of it. So the fact that in trade finance, Lars and the IFC team leveraged our financing to keep a lot of banks in the market. I mentioned the Vienna Initiative. In Indonesia, we organized with the Asian Development Bank, the Australians and Japanese, a backstop proposal. So part of my point here is it's not just financing, we need to be able to leverage it and kind of innovate it in innovative ways. And I think we're able to do that, including some things that I hope will become seeds of very important future growth, like this asset management company, which is a subsidiary of IFC, where we're now tapping the sovereign funds and pension funds. And we've already got $4 billion of money that the bank would have never seen going into African equity markets. So it's not only the response in financial terms, but it's also the innovation. And then as part of that, it goes to this modernization phase, which I think has just been begun. And there, as I mentioned briefly in my remarks, and here I credit some of my team, Carolyn Anstey, Sanjay Pradhan, together we decided this focus on really opening up the bank as an institution was a key to not only development, but frankly having a healthier bank. And so an open information policy is a first among multilaterals based on an Indian and U.S. Freedom of Information Act. This open data initiative is just going to, I've already seen it is going to drive a whole new way of doing policy, because we're making this accessible with mobile phone technology in any country around the world. And so we're going to have a much more interactive process. And just to connect this to a little bit of the transition debate, Larry, it was interesting, that, and I'm not saying this was any of the three candidates, but some others were saying, oh, the bank is doing too many things. It must focus on, these three things. In my view, that was a mistake that elitist economists made 20 years ago, where they said, we know what developing countries need. And maybe it's because of my private and policy background. My approach has been fundamentally different. It says, let's focus on the client. Let's hear what the client needs. And then let's take the innovation from the world and apply it. So, and then in the process, we can learn with the client through an open process about how to do it better. So, I think, I'm sure you've encountered this with the Guardian, but I've encountered it at university campuses, is that, the bank is still a multilateral, Washington-based institution, but the more you open up an institution, it's the best antidote to conspiracy theories and better policy.
No fight is that.
Pardon?
No fight is that.
Well, I'll let you be the judge of the fate.
Yes. Thank you to